Hi, I'm Dimitri Metzeltin from Mackie, and this is the Big Knob series that I'm going to present now. The Big Knob series consists of 3 different units. So we have the Big Knob Passive, the Big Knob Studio, and the Big Knob Studio Plus. So let's start with the Big Knob Passive. As the name already says, it's a completely passive monitor controller. We have 2 pairs of balanced inputs and 2 pairs of balanced outputs. So I can change and switch between the 2 balanced inputs and select monitor pair A or B. In the middle we find the big knob, the big volume knob here, and we have the mono, mute and dim switches here on the Big Knob Passive as well. When we move on to the Big Knob Studio and Studio Plus, the first thing that I have to say is that it's not just a monitor controller, but it's a completely high-end audio interface as well. Okay, let's have a look at the ins and outs on the Big Knob Studio. So we see here 2 combo inputs. We're using Mackie Onyx Preamps, extremely renowned preamps with a high signal to noise ratio. We're using also Cyrus Logic converters for the AD conversion with 24-bit and 192K, and we're using really good 114 dB Cyrus Logic converters here. The second pair of inputs is input 3-4. We have here line inputs with the switch between -10 and +4 dB. Then we see the main 2-track output here and the 2 pairs of monitor outputs. They're all balanced. And on the left hand side I can see here the USB port. So we have a USB audio interface, a 2x2 audio interface on the Big Knob Studio. Okay, let's start with the front first. So we see here input 3 and 4 as a mini jack input. This is really handy. Let's say your singer comes into the studio and says, oh, I had a brilliant idea in the car and I just want to play it back to you. I recorded it on my smartphone. Then you can connect the smartphone directly to this input and listen to what the singer, to the singer's idea in this case. Okay, then we have the headphone outputs right here and the volume knobs for the headphones on top of it. Good thing is that the headphone outputs are on the front, so you don't have any cables hanging around on the top of the Big Knob. Okay, let's have a look at the top of the Big Knob. So here we have the Onyx preamps with the volume knobs right there. Input 3-4, so these are all my levels. Then with these switches I can decide what I want to have on my master. Then we have, as the name says, the big knob, so the big volume knob here right in the middle with mono, mute and dim functions. A big LED meter right there. Next to it we have the Talkback microphone that's built in, and I activate it down here on the right hand side and can adjust the Talkback level with this knob right there. On the top right we see the switches for monitor A or monitors B, and I can adjust the levels and trim the levels of the monitors. This is also really handy because usually different pairs of monitors also have different wattage, so they have different levels, and to guarantee to have always the same volume, the same level, you can trim the signal right there. Okay, right now we're looking at the ins and outs of the Big Knob Studio Plus, and we see already a couple of differences here to the Big Knob Studio. We have more inputs and more outputs. So we start here with the combo inputs for the Onyx preamps as well. It's the same as on the Big Knob Studio, but we have an additional pair of line inputs right there. Then we have an aux mix or Q-in. So that's also very useful. Let's say you want to use the Big Knob Studio Plus in a bigger studio environment. You're already using a big audio interface, but you still want to use the functions of the Big Knob. Then you can hook the Big Knob Studio Plus into your system by using these additional inputs that we have right here and also the additional outputs. We have a Talkback microphone input here, so you can use an external microphone if you want. You still can use the internal Talkback microphone as well, and a foot switch connector right there to activate the Talkback. Then we have the master out, the same as on the Big Knob Studio. Then we have an additional studio phones amp out. And this is really useful. Let's say you have more musicians in the studio, you want to connect a phones amp so that 3 or 4 musicians can listen to the music at the same time. Then you can connect a phones amp here, or you have a separated recording room. Then you would connect the phones amp in the recording room to this output right there. Then we have an additional pair of monitor outputs. You see here monitor C, they're all balanced as well. And we see the USB interface. Now this USB interface is a little bit different to the Big Knob Studio. It's 24-bit 192K as well, but we have a 2x4 audio interface built in here, and I will explain the additional functions that this brings to us. Okay, when we look at the front, we see a stereo mini jack input like on the Big Knob Studio, so it's the same function there. Then we have here the 2 headphone outputs. Now on these headphone outputs I can put on there 2 different mixes. So as I said, our audio interface on the Big Knob Studio Plus is a 2x4 audio interface. So whatever DAW you're using, like Pro Tools or Cubase or Logic, you can set up a different headphone mix here. So you can have your own master mix on the mains, but you can make a separate headphone mix. And actually on the headphone output you can send 2 different mixes out there. So you can listen to the master mix, but you can create your own Q mix. So this is really useful with the 4 outputs that you have from out of your computer. On the left hand side then we have 2 switches and knobs to change the inputs for the headphone mix and to mix the headphone mix here as well. So a lot of functionality there for monitoring. The top is quite the same as the Big Knob Studio, so we have here the input levels for the Onyx Preamps. We have the additional 5/6 input right there. We have the switches to put all these channels on the master. Then we have here something different to the Big Knob Studio. It's the level for the studio headphone amp out, so I can create and set up the level right there and activate the headphone output. We have the Talkback microphone built inside as well, the big volume knob in the middle with mono, mute and dim functions, the big LED meter, Talkback level right here on the right hand side. And on the top right we see now 3 switches for the 3 different monitor pairs. So I can have monitor pair A, B or C. I can also use these simultaneously if I want to. For example, if I have an additional subwoofer that I want to turn on or off, I can do that as well here. On top of that, then again, the trim levels for the studio monitors. So this is the Big Knob Studio Plus. The whole series is the Big Knob Passive, the Big Knob Studio and the Big Knob Studio Plus. The Big Knob Passive is really useful for an existing studio where maybe you bought a second pair of monitors and you want to change and switch between monitor pairs. Now the Big Knob Studio is very useful for home studios, but also for broadcast or if you're doing podcasts as well. And now the Big Knob Studio Plus is really useful for bigger studio environments where you need to make a different headphone mix, for example, and if you want to integrate this in a bigger environment as well, maybe you need the additional monitor pairs to switch to here right there on the Big Knob Studio Plus. So, thanks a lot for watching this video. I'm Dimitri Metzeltin from Mackie and this was the Big Knob series. Thanks.